Otega Oweh has only gone and done it again as Kentucky wins it at the buzzer against the Oklahoma Sooners.
You are Locked On Kentucky, your daily podcast on the Kentucky Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, what's going on, Big Blue Nation? Welcome on into Locked On Kentucky, your daily Kentucky Wildcats podcast. I'm your host, Lance Dawe, and tonight we are recapping a chaotic, a near disastrous victory over the Oklahoma Sooners. 85-84 is the final score in Nashville. Cats get it done because Otega Oweh again owns the Oklahoma Sooners at the buzzer. It was almost complete and utter disaster for the Kentucky Wildcats, and they find a way again against the Sooners. Going to be breaking this one down here for you. Thank you guys so much for making Locked On Kentucky your first listen every single day. We are broadcasting live here on YouTube. If you are watching here, please let me know what you thought about the game. We'll get to the good. We'll get to the bad. What a crazy, crazy performance tonight from Otega Oweh, dropping 27 points on his former team, fathering them once more. Today's episode is brought to you by TurboTax. Are you ready for stress-free taxes and the most money back guaranteed? You can head over to TurboTax today and get matched with your expert. Really appreciate everybody here in the live chat. I see Isaac Shade, host of the Locked On College Basketball Podcast, in here. Great Kentuckian, as always. Luke Newman, of course. What a game. Oh my gosh, Kentucky almost gave this one away at the very end due to some turnovers, some incredibly confusing officiating. As Isaac Shade points out in the live chat, the continuation call was horrible and no flagrant one for straight up pulling down Carr. You'd like to think that at some point here in the final few minutes of this game, Kentucky would have had a call go their way, like Shade points out. No. Unfortunately, they did not. They had to fight through some crazy adversity outside of some turnovers, which I think partially, why don't you call a timeout, considering you have 2 timeouts left? But also, it looked like Oweh might have gotten fouled a couple of different times before he turned the ball over, at least the first time. Did not matter. Took matters into his own hands. Kentucky raced it up the floor. And as Oweh said at the end of the game when he was being interviewed by Molly McGrath, what was he told? Get downhill. What an amazing performance. The second time this season Kentucky has gotten a win at the Horn against Oklahoma, all thanks to Otega Oweh, who has been playing like a star for the Kentucky Wildcats this season. His development, his production, it cannot go understated. I think this kid was deserving of an All-American nod, but based on the way that he has kind of taken things over in big-time moments, and now you're getting to see it in March, just nothing short of stunned, as much as the Oklahoma Sooners were as well. Man, the officiating, we don't have to get into it. Obviously, we talk so much about it on this show about how it's just bad for college basketball all around. I think you saw that across the board here at various NCAA tournament games, or SEC, or conference tournament games, I should say, today. It was bad here towards the end. And of course, Kentucky, you can't blame the loss if they had lost this game on the officials. You can't say it was directly their fault. But man, it was just some confusing calls, and they all happened to go against Kentucky. As Oblivious points out in the chat, Chandler was literally bleeding, and they said no contact. They said no contact in the first half. He was bleeding down his face. I don't quite understand what Terry Oglesby and Owen Short and the crew were looking at tonight. Obviously, they've not been favorable to Kentucky, especially in that Alabama game that they had just a few weeks ago. But it was weird. There's no denying that it was very weird. You can't blame that loss on the refs. Again, if you lose, you have to blame it on the turnovers, inability to make shots down the stretch, and ability to get stops. But just a very, very weird game, I think, overall, in terms of pacing, in terms of the way that it was called there from the officials. Lamont Butler, I think, is another big story coming out of this one, right? You have all this momentum. You're all excited. You're revved up. You're fired up right now here. What is 1:26 on the East Coast, 12:26 for Central Time. Crazy stuff here as just kind of we roll deeper into the night. But you have to realize, hey, we might be down our starting point guard either for tomorrow or the however many games Kentucky gets through in the NCAA tournament. Goodness gracious alive, man. Goodness gracious alive. Things could be great if you find a way to win tomorrow against Alabama, but man, it's going to be really, really tough if you are not able to have your lead guard there, Lamont Butler, out on the floor. Biker Believer says, how long has it been since we won an SEC tournament game? I believe the last time Kentucky won a game in Nashville was 2022 when they beat Vanderbilt, or was that in Tampa, actually? No, that was in Tampa. So you have to go all the way back then, because if I'm not mistaken, you didn't have a game in 2021 or 2022. You go back to 2019. That 73-55 win over Alabama on March 15th, 2019 is the last time that you got a win in the SEC tournament in Nashville. Goodness gracious, I am still reeling from what was just an incredible end there. If you're a college basketball fan, you love to see it. If you're a Kentucky fan, I'm not gonna lie, I was very, 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 very upset after Kentucky had given up a couple of turnovers that just led to baskets there at the end. Everybody in the live chat seems to agree the officiating was not great. Ito, the F&D, says, let's be serious. Being sloppy with a rock late in the game like that will almost guarantee us a loss against Alabama. I agree. And look, on the whole, Kentucky actually played really well, holding the ball until the very end. They had like 5 turnovers well into this game, like 3/4 of the way into this game. And something that DeJure points out here, playing 8 makes it tough. Playing only 8 guys, playing a tight rotation, not having your first, second, or third option at point guard is going to kill you. And obviously the ball handling of Colin Chandler and Kobe Brea and Otega Oweh, I mean, you can't dismiss it entirely. You have to give those guys credit because they have been able to make plays, but it's nothing, and I mean nothing compared to what you had with Lamont Butler and then what you had with Kirk Risa for 8 or 9 games this season. So, whew. Goodness gracious. Mark Pope not calling a timeout at various points was a little confusing there towards the end, but he gets away with it. He gets away with it here. That is something that I think that we are talking about for a very long time on the show. If Kentucky ends up losing this game, if that shot by Oweh does not go in. But man, goodness gracious, Kentucky finds a way. Otega Oweh, 27 points, 5 assists, 4 rebounds, 2 turnovers there at the end. No turnovers up until that point, mind you. Luke Newman says, refs tried to screw us out of this game, no doubt. Biker Believer says, I think Pope trusted the players to take one if they couldn't get it inbound, and they didn't. Turnovers at the end were ... felony assaults. Yeah, it looked like on the first turnover that Otega had that he got fouled like twice before he coughed the ball up. Odd Future says, can you please talk about the refs trying to give the game to Fears? Yes, and Isaac Shade said it at the beginning of the show here. The continuation call. So he gets fouled, right, on the floor. He takes another step and then puts the shot up. They didn't call it an and one initially, and then Fears essentially got to call his own and one. He's like, that's an and one. The official's like, you're right. That is an and one. Like I don't quite understand what the officials were on there towards the final few minutes of the game, because Kentucky had gotten up by 12. They had done enough to win this game outright. And there was just some weird calls, man, some really weird calls. After the live stream, I'm going to watch Leach's call of the game. I'm curious to see what it was like, too. Ito says, our fan base ran that arena. You love to see it. Man, isn't it great to see Kentucky go on the road into Nashville and get a huge win, and the fans, the environment, be such a big part of it throughout the entire contest. No way Otega was mugged. I can't hold him solely responsible for those turnovers. I think the second one was bad. I don't know how you don't take a timeout. I don't know how you don't take a timeout there if you're Oweh or if you're Mark Pope with him having the ball on the second turnover. The first turnover, I thought he got fouled twice. I need to go back and watch it, obviously, to kind of see what exactly happened and why they didn't call a foul, but it looked like he got slapped twice when players were going for the ball. Tim Kernet said, UK bled to win this one. Abso-freaking-lutely. No blood, no foul, I guess, in this contest as Kentucky wins it 85-84. Another buzzer-beating shot for Otega Oweh against his former team. Will continue to break it down here. What an incredible performance from the Wildcats. We'll do so here in just a second. Before I do, though, I want to tell you guys about our friends over at TurboTax. Taxes used to be waiting and wondering and worrying if you were going to get any money back, and then waiting and wondering and worrying some more. Now, Taxes today is matching with a TurboTax expert who can do your taxes as soon as today. An expert who gives your taxes their undivided attention as they work on your return, while you get real-time updates on their progress so you can focus on your day. It's an expert who will find you every deduction possible and file every form, every investment, and and everything with 100% accuracy. Also, you can get the most money back guaranteed. It's no wondering, no waiting, no worries. Oh, now this right here is taxes. You can get an expert at TurboTax.com, only available with TurboTax Live full service. Real-time updates only in the iOS mobile app. You can see guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. All right, continuing along here on the Friday morning edition of Locked On Kentucky. Lance Dawe hanging out here with you. Really appreciate you guys checking out the show today. If you have not subscribed to the podcast feed or the YouTube channel, wherever you are watching this one, I would greatly appreciate it if you did so. Channel's been taking on a lot of new members recently, so if you're new here, let me know what you think about the show. Let me know what you thought about this game as Kentucky wins it at the buzzer, 85-84. Otega Suns the Sooners again. Incredible, incredible game. Still Dre asks a very, very good question. Has there ever been a game or day where Kentucky and Louisville had a buzzer beater on the same day? That is a phenomenal question. I don't know, and I'd probably be a hot minute for me to pull that up and see how if that ever occurred. But that's a very interesting question. Tony Willoughby says, thankfully Pope didn't take Oweh out after 4 fouls. If so, we would have been screwed. That's a very good point. Mike Blair says Oklahoma plays goonball. I don't know quite what that means, but I think I can appreciate the sentiment, and I think I would have to agree with you, even despite not quite understanding, but I think I agree with you. Man, they've got some dudes, man. They've got some really good players. I think Fears, you have to give respect to him. Foul baiting is one thing, but the kid, I mean, obviously he's a tough cover. He's extremely hard to guard. He's a great ball handler, not a great three-point shooter. 2 of 11 tonight, 10 of 22, but he got his 28 points, including what would have been, if I'm not mistaken, almost the game winner for them. Jay the Great says, did you say they started the clock late to try give Oklahoma one last shot? Even the timekeeper tried to help them at the end. I noticed that. I wasn't going to say anything about it, but I did notice it started with, while he was into his throwing motion, the clock hadn't started with half a second left. How is the car thing not at least a flagrant one? I think if I had to play devil's advocate here, which in my opinion they should have upgraded it, because of him pulling him down while he was airborne, it wasn't the initial contact, right? It wasn't the play on the ball. It was the grabbing after the ball had been dislodged and throwing him to the ground. That should have been upgraded, but I think if anything, they were calling it a play on the ball, and that was when the whistle was, and anything after that was not the foul, I guess. I don't know. I can't give a great explanation, but that's my best devil's advocate here. Oh, we went to combat. Finish him. How do you sleep after that? I got bad news for everybody. I'm going to be up all night for various reasons. One, this is probably being the biggest one. Irexis82 says Oklahoma, or Irixi, I believe. Oklahoma is definitely a tournament team from the only 2 games of theirs I've watched. Yeah, man, they can get after it, dude. They are a special bunch. I think that Porter Moser, despite getting some criticism online this season, I mean, at various points, you see him draw stuff up and you're impressed. The offense is not the most free-flowing thing in the world, but, man, he's got some things on X's and O's that he can get done. Let's see here. Ref sucks, says Miles' voice. Jeremy Marcellet says, Arkansas getting beat at the buzzer and us winning at the buzzer. It's March. Yes, indeed. I can't. That's the first comment I've seen from Captain Crash 21 that wasn't about Grant Darbyshire. Are you okay, man? You good? You good, dog? Julie Sheving says, I can't stand dirty fouls. I agree. Ken Palm, let's take a look. I think Kentucky they moved down to 7th nationally in adjusted offensive efficiency. And while their defense is still 56th nationally, it's up to 99.7 in adjusted defensive efficiency, in terms of the amount of points they give up per 100 possessions adjusted for opponent, right? Which is really, really good, the fact that it's under 100. Kentucky is playing good defense as of late. Yes, they gave up 84 points tonight, but man, it was a contest that Kentucky, I think, throughout played some really solid defense, especially from beyond the arc on Jeremiah Fears, just forcing him into a lot of bad shots. Triple F says Kentucky about shot themselves in the foot last couple of minutes, but the refs were horrible. The last foul call on Oweh was horrible. I agree. If Kentucky had lost this game, it would have been on UK. The officiating at the very end did not help. It was flat out confusing, and it was all entirely against Kentucky all the way to the end. Kentucky did not get any favors. They were not given any favors in this game. UK guard play is really poor. That'll happen whenever you're down 3 players in your backcourt. Otega Oweh is 2 for 2 on game winners to win by 1 point. Yep, both against his same team. You automatically get plus 10 attributes in every category when you play Kentucky. It's wild. It is kind of weird, right? How statistically opponents just play punch above their weight class. What feels like a consistent amount whenever they play the Cats. Do I think Otega will get drafted next year? I hope next year. I say yes, and I hope that it's next year, not this year. Knock on wood. Great Kentuckian says, Lance, depending on the bracket, if Arkansas, Louisville, and St. John's play in Lexington, I'm taking time off and going to watch those games. Want to see Louisville and Arkansas get embarrassed. I think that would be a really cool road trip, honestly, to get to see all three of those teams, root for one, pull against two. I think that's a great. I think that would be a great time. Otega Oweh takes us to a Final Four. He gets drafted. Seems fair. Deal. You know what? Deal. If he takes us to the Final Four and it's him that makes it happen, I will not complain. Go on to the NBA. Go ahead and make your money. If not, I'd like you back for one more season, please. And thank you. The refs hate Kentucky for some reason. The fouls were atrocious. I think they don't like Mark Pope. I think Oglesby and Short don't like Pope, like genuinely. And it's all about working the refs, right? Which Porter Moser was doing the entire game. I do not know how he did not get teed up at any point, man. I mean, he was losing his crap. And it got him. Almost got Kentucky there at the very end. Dude was trying to give us a heart attack. Yeah, Garrison played good tonight. We actually need to go look at some of the other statistics here for the Wildcats. Let's see. It's such a shame that for some reason the last two recaps that I've done, the Stats Broadcast website has been really spotty. Like, I will go over to another tab and I will open something else up and I will go to try and read something and it will just crap out on me. So let's see. Home stats. And Oweh, obviously, with 27 points. Brandon Garrison with 5 points. He was plus 11. Led all players in plus-minus box score. So, there you go. Played pretty well on defense, at least according to the box score. Patrick Maiden says, starting with the Georgia game at the beginning of the year, it's literally been thug ball allowed versus Kentucky most of conference play. I don't know if I would describe it like that. I would say that it's incredibly physical, and it's not basketball. I've called it football. I've called it football. I think Auburn's called it football. Tennessee's called it football. A&M's called it football. It's been extremely physical stuff, and even the broadcast said that a couple of different times tonight. I think actually throughout the SEC tournament today about how different teams are playing like a football style of play where they just go out there and they rough you up, and they dare the officials to call it, and it's just not been consistently called in Kentucky's favor. I can't read that comment from Great Kentucky, and frankly, I shouldn't have read the previous one, but I think that is entertaining at the very least. Julie Sheving says, I think Otega Oweh should stay and get more solid and less emotional. I think it's interesting the emotions of this team and kind of how they ride highs and lows, but man, they are an experienced veteran group, and they've been able to kind of clutch it out every single time this season. They've been able to find a way. Duke, Gonzaga, Oklahoma twice. They found a way to win. Bottom line, says Justin Jackson. I couldn't agree more. Hey, let's wrap this up. We'll take more chats here. We'll talk more about stats and what Bama means tomorrow. A little under the weather. Before we continue, though, I do want to tell you guys about our friends over at Factor. If you're looking to optimize your nutrition this year, Factor makes eating well easy with chef-prepared, dietitian-approved meals that are fresh, never frozen, and ready to heat and eat in just 2 minutes. With 40 options across 8 dietary preferences every week, you can customize your meals to fit your lifestyle. Whether it's Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, or Keto, plus Factor even offers wholesome smoothies, breakfasts, and grab-and-go snacks to help keep you fueled all day long. I love how Factor takes the stress out of meal planning. I've tried their Protein Plus as I've been trying to get more protein into my diet as of late, and they were packed with flavor and kept me full throughout the entire day. The convenience is also unbeatable. It's what makes it great for me as I'm pretty busy. It's no prep, no mess, just great food in a couple of minutes. You can eat smart with Factor. Get started at factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50 off and use code LockedOnCollege50 off to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's code LockedOnCollege50 off at factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50 off to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. All right, wrapping up the Friday edition, early Friday edition, supposed to be Thursday edition of Locked On Kentucky. Lance Dawe hanging out here with you. I really appreciate you guys. Again, hanging out with me in the live chat, over 370 of you guys in here. Just a Dude says, I did a lap around the basement as quietly as I could as to not wake the others. Incredible. It's a moment in history for sure for a lot of Kentucky fans to get a buzzer-beating win in Nashville. You come back, your coach talks about how important it is to win, And here you are facing off against Alabama, a team that you've not beaten in the 2 times you've played them this year. If you're down Lamont Butler, things get very, very difficult in a hurry. But as apparently the entire internet has disagreed with me on the Tennessee rematch or potential Tennessee rematch, I've continued to say, look, I would like that matchup. And all of you have said it's hard to beat a team 3 times in a row. Well, if that's the case, then Kentucky's going to win today. And that's my take. I'm going to go ahead and tell you. I think Kentucky finds a way to get it done today, similar to the Missouri game. There's not a stat that I can point to. There's not a matchup that I can say, hey, this is why Kentucky's going to win. It's momentum, it's grit, it's toughness, and I think that's what's going to win the day for Kentucky tomorrow. Get the upset, bring them on to the semifinals, if I'm not mistaken, of the SEC tournament. Julie Sheving says, I got to go to bed. I'm old. It's already sleep deprived, and it's March. Thank you so much for tuning in, Julie. I appreciate it. Great Kentuckian says, Lance, is this not the best SEC tournament in history? When this ends on Sunday, could you do some research on whether this is the best SEC tournament we may ever see in terms of quality of matchups? Like in terms of like KenPom rankings between them, in terms of net rankings, in terms of how would you like me to quantify? Because I can do that on Sunday, I think. Biker Believer says the SEC tourney almost feels as big as the NCAA tourney. It's crazy. It's a doozy, man. This is a good Oklahoma team. I just want to point this out here real quick. Oklahoma is 37th in the country, according to KenPom. That would be good for 1, 2, 3, 4. That would be good for 5th best in the ACC. That would be the 5th best team in the ACC. That's a good team. And they finished, 14th? 13th, 14th in this league? Wow. Hats off to them. That's a good team that deserves to be in the NCAA tournament. Absolutely. Nothing bothered me more than the moving screen on Amari, as if every screen in this league isn't illegal. Fair point. I'm surprised the folks next door didn't hear me tonight. I know the folks next door sure heard me, and I'll just leave it at that. Oweh took it out of the ref's hands. Good guys win. UK has not won in that arena in an SEC tournament game since 2019. March 15th, 2019, almost to the day. Our defense was the best it's been all year. Up until the very end, man, it was really good. Braden Quinn says, man, I'm naming my firstborn Otega. Birthday Batter says, Chandler over Perry seems like a necessity at this point to compensate for missing Butler's defense. I agree. No, very well said. Kentucky says, quality and sense of how close these games have been relative to talent. I think that, okay. So like in terms of, yes, I can do that. Let's see if there's any, yes, I know how I would do that. I can do that on Sunday. Thank you so much for tuning in, Braden. I appreciate that comment. Triple F says it feels great to have an SEC tournament win. When was Kentucky's last win in the SEC tournament? March 15th of 2019, 73-55 win over Alabama. You get a big one here over the Sooners. Actually, hold up real quick. I want to go. That Alabama team was 64th nationally, according to KenPom. This year's Oklahoma team is 37th. What's our record versus Alabama? This year, 0-2. Hard to beat a team 3 times, at least that's what people are telling me. Old guys rule in Catville, Lance. Yes, indeed. Oweh, cold-blooded. I'm glad I live in the country. Oh, yeah, get to hoot and holler and shout. I resonate with that. 3 bad calls, 3 turnovers, and then we pull it off somehow. Thus is the Kentucky roller coaster. Man, thank you, Lance. Get some sleep, man. I've got a lot of work to lock in on, so I'm probably going to be up literally all night. But hey, we're making it happen. This is the best time of the year. This is my favorite time of the year. I would not ask for anything more other than to be able to break this down here with you guys, other than to be able to work with Locked On. It's been a joy. It's been incredible. I've had a phenomenal time. Stuff like this, win or lose, is such a blast. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, by the way. Over 450 of you in here. I keep looking over, and every single time the number just keeps climbing. It's insane. Thank you guys for liking the video. Thank you for giving your thoughts, your questions, your opinions. It's been incredible. Just live stream all night. Man, if my camera wouldn't die, I'd think about it. Cryptofoe, which with the incredible profile picture, by the way, says, I think if Kentucky's offense treated Colin like an actual member of the offense, he could run the offense pretty decently. A lot of time they wouldn't listen to him and couldn't catch his passes. That's a very interesting take. I would like to be able to watch a little bit more, just pay attention to Chandler a little bit more. But I think that Chandler's got something in him, man. He's got some special to him. He's got some talent. I'd like to see him just kind of develop a little bit more over the course of these next few games. Keep in mind, guys, we are only guaranteed 2 more games with this team. And they may be injury-riddled, they may be battered, they may be beat down emotionally, but they keep fighting. And they keep finding ways to win against some really, really, really good competition. Despite not taking the 2 timeouts at the end of the game, I still think Mark Pope is an incredible coach. I think he knows what he's doing out there. I think he's making it happen, man, for this offense. You score 85 points on a night where you only shot 33% from 3 and 68% from the charity stripe. It's a good coach. It's a good team that I love. These guys are incredible. You ever think about doing a watch-along show? I have. I don't think it'll happen this year because of technical stuff. But my goal is to try and do that next season. And I know what I have to get. I just can't get it in time for this year. But yes, I have. Let's go over some of the why does the Perry get rid of the ball so quickly? Seems like he's scared. Probably because he might be a little bit. He's probably because he's a freshman and and he probably is a little scared. Not gonna lie, you're probably right. Triple F says, I'm too tired and fired up to go to sleep. Guess I'll stay up and check out the Blood Moon. Hey, you know what? Don't blame you. Absolutely don't blame you. We would have been 1 and done if Cal was still our coach. We wouldn't have scored 85 in this game. I'll tell you that. No other hire who could have done better than Pope. Nobody. Outside of the missing the timeouts, man. Let's talk stats here. 27 points for Oweh. 22 for Kobe Brea, who played out of his flippin' mind in this contest. 22 points, 8 of 12 shooting, 4 of 7 from beyond the arc, 4 rebounds, 2 assists on the day, second leading scorer on the team. Only one other player in double figures, and that was Andrew Carr, 4 of 5, 11 points, 7 rebounds, 1 assist. Amari had 7 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists. Colin Chandler with that 1 big 3, despite going 1 of 7. He's going to have games where he shoots poorly. He's going to have games where he shoots well. Shoots well in the next contest against Bama, we might have a really good chance. Brandon Garrison with 5. Almanor with 4 big points that I think came on back-to-back possessions in that second half. Big-time stuff from him. Trent Noah with a couple of buckets, 4 points, 6 boards, and an assist. Man, Noah just flies in for stuff all the time. It's impressive. Lamont in 8 minutes only had 2 points, but 3 assists and no turnovers. Shows just how valuable he is to this offense. Let's see here. 5 versus 8 would a win. Officials could not win it for fear. So sad. Go Big Blue. Connor Pendleton says if Kentucky wins the SEC tourney, they have to be a 2 seed in the NCAA tourney, but let's get revenge win against Bama first. Go Cats. Luke Newman's watching the Blood Moon as well. Cool stuff. Arkansas loses and Kentucky wins. Good day. Game was crazy. I started thinking we were cursed when we choked that lead. It feels like that at various points this season, right, man? With the injury luck, I think KSR did a great video on it recently. Stephen Peake did a phenomenal video about Kentucky and their injury history. Butler update, all that we've got. I'm going to have to go check the press conference once I'm done live streaming, seeing what Pope has to say. But what they said at halftime was the shoulder stuff. They got an x-ray. He was out for this game, and they would have to further evaluate it, but not out for the next game. We'll see what happens. Every Kentucky fan needs to contact the NCAA tomorrow. Refs have got to be investigated. I really hope we don't get them tomorrow. I don't know what the schedule's like, but I have a bad feeling we're going to get them again. And that would be the second time against Bama this year, and that may screw us. But, of course, I'm calling an upset. I'm calling my shot. I think Kentucky finds a way to get it done tomorrow. Grit. I can't give you a stat. I can't give you a matchup. I have a gut feeling they're going to find a way to get it done. Stitches and no fouls. These refs were absolutely horrible. Should have played Zach Tao. Man, if we had gotten up enough, we would have seen him out there. We got to pray we got Lamont tomorrow. If we don't, man, you got to have him rest up. You got to have him rest up, see if you can get him for the NCAA tournament. Refs need to know. Refs need to not know which game they are officiating until they get there or have direct in-person supervision from the moment they know until they call the game. I think that would be a little difficult to manage, but I agree as far as just that you've got to have less bias in your officiating. Man, and I don't think Kentucky is getting that with Owen Short and Terry Oglesby on the floor. I'll just say this. There were some bad calls all the way around in this one. There should have been a couple of calls that went Kentucky's way in the first half that didn't, that should have went Oklahoma's way that didn't. I think Porter was deservedly so, really upset about a couple different things. But at the same time, man, they hosed Kentucky at the end of the game. Captain Crash says we still got Grant. He's extremely well rested. We're going to leave it at that with Captain Crash. That's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Kentucky. You can follow the show on Twitter at Locked On UK. You can follow me on Twitter at @LanceDawe_ and follow the show over on Instagram. That is at Kentucky Podcast. Any questions, comments, concerns, leave those in the YouTube comments below. Hit me on the socials. I will see you all tomorrow in another episode of Locked On Kentucky. Have a great rest of your night, everybody, and go Cats.